I mean, the only thing coming to my mind is that you were hanging out with the Virgin Mary and the 12 apostles, and Mary said she wanted to sing. Is that no?
That it sounds like funny, but that actually sounds true. That actually that actually sounds true. And it was beautiful.
Welcome to Grief Heals, the podcast that explores how grief heals. Join us as we consider how grief invites love within ourselves, our communities, our world, our histories, and how it is that grief heals. I'm Lisa Michelle Zega here with Eric Simpson.
I'm very excited to announce that we start another healing circle. This is an online experience. It's Tuesday evenings, PST. It starts at 5:30 p.m. It goes until 7 p.m. Together, we experience just a gentle rhythm of embracing silence, of being with poetry, of being with our own hearts. Like I hold the space open with my co host, Steve, and we just are together embracing our shared humanity. So you are invited. The January 16th Healing Circle is now going to be on February 6th. So I'll be saying more about that, but just for now, it's being postponed until February 6th. Welcome to another episode of Grief Heals with your host, Lisa Michelle Zega and Eric Simpson. Hey,
Hi,
Eric.
how's
Good
it going?
morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's been a whirlwind of a week, and I'm not feeling at my best, and I'm really grateful to be here with you.
Great. So we're going to talk today a little bit more about grief, which is extremely appropriate given that that's what this podcast is about. It's right there in the title.
Grief Heals.
Exactly. How was your week?
Well, it was, like I said, it was a whirlwind. It was highly emotional. Yeah, would you like to hear a little bit about what I was up to?
Yeah.
I have the honor and privilege of presenting a week-long workshop to people that have been out of the workforce for a long time for one reason or another. And this time I got to work with men who have had long-term incarceration and are getting to come into the workforce from another agency that I contract with. And so, anyway, I'm the life skills transition person, and I got to spend 4 days with 13 fabulous humans, 12 of which were men. And it rocked my world, opened my heart. And then in the evening, my coworker and I were watching The Crowded Room. And I think you're familiar with that series and have even read the book it was based on. So that's kind of what I was up to. And then I woke up this morning and I don't feel good.
Oh man. So so you were working with criminals and bad people basically all
Ouch.
week. No.
No, I was working with really beautiful humans who've been, oh my gosh, Eric, that
Right. I said that to
it's
make a point.
it's live. No, I know.
Okay.
I was working with I'm actually glad that you underscored what so many people think just naturally. We've been conditioned to think that, and I know you were jesting,
Hmm.
provoking even, and I appreciate that in you. And it nailed my heart because I was working with some of the most glorious people and who changed my life forever. And their life lives in me. And I feel like they have helped me to be a better human and get a greater clarity of my direction in life. So,
So
yeah,
you're working with people who are transitioning from prison into society,
that's the
and
goal. Yeah.
and you're working for the organization because they're going to work for your organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're going to work for the organization. And then all of these men are well, and the woman are in some kind of transitional home for whatever reason. Well, I know the reason because they felt seen and heard and loved, and nobody was there trying to fix them, advise them, or save them. And my colleague and I were there just as fellow humans.
Right.
And so they opened up to us in ways that I really wasn't prepared for, invited us into pieces of their story. But the thing is, too, I learned so much from them. Like one man, I sat with him and I said, like, he felt so incredibly wise, right? Like some shaman or Buddhist or, seasoned pastor. Like I just wanted to be in his presence and learn from him and really like this idea of sitting at his feet. And I asked him, I said, what helped you become this man of wisdom like this? And he said, years of solitude, not chosen solitude, right? There are people that I'm sure would even argue with what I just said, but
Mm.
regardless, his imagination, his dreams, connecting with his inner self and
Hmm.
inner wisdom, and not just all the ways he had learned to keep himself safe over the years. I just learned so much. And one woman, like she sang for us and she sang with her whole body and her whole heart. And it was so brave. And it wasn't like a performance. It wasn't like a singer singing. It was like someone who that's not their gift and just allowing themselves the freedom to have the song move through them. Like her, when she asked to do that, I thought she was just asking for us to play a song.
Oh,
And she got up and every one of us was changed, but it opened and allowed me to access a part of myself, this part of me that's like, I can't dance, I can't sing, I don't want to be seen in my awkwardness. She was so courageous.
you were hanging out with the Virgin Mary and the 12 apostles, and Mary said she wanted to sing. Is that no?
That it sounds like funny, but that actually sounds true. That
Hmm.
actually that actually sounds true. And it was beautiful. And but the thing is, it wasn't like it was a shared humanity, Eric. It wasn't like they were elevated above.
Right.
We were just deeply and richly together. And it was so, when I say that grief heals, like they allowed us and we allowed them to see each other and not just the shiny performance.
Hmm.
And we talked about very real things. Like one guy said that in part of their program, they have to be in 5 hours of groups every single day.
Hmm.
And he said that what he experienced was more powerful. Like he didn't feel, what would you call, like it was a non-therapeutic healing group. That's how
Hmm.
he said it. I think this idea of just being with one another, that grief really does heal. And I know that attuning to my grief like has had this profound snowball effect of as I am with myself, I am with you. And when I am compassionate in here, I am compassionate out there. And now my own personal journey feels like grief is calling me to a higher impact in our world than I have ever imagined for myself. But now it doesn't feel like it feels like a sacred obligation. And I don't know what that means.
It makes sense that grief is an important taproot in order to bring to light those things that we've hidden from ourselves as human beings, as well as a society or as a world, as humanity. If you look at our shared humanity, if you just look at the headlines, which only present a small portion of what's going on in the world, you'll see that there's a lot of grief in the world and need for grief. But the grief part doesn't make the headline. The violence and the harm that people create against each other and the corruption, the evil that is in the world points to the fact that there is this bedrock of grief in which we all move and live and exist. that goes by unnoticed or that is repressed and ignored. So that's what makes, I think, this work really important. And your work with these individuals who are transitioning back into this violent and corrupt society from a violent and corrupt prison. You're there for a specific purpose. So you probably didn't really talk about grief and things like that. I'm just curious as to how.
I get the honor of being just with people. Like, first, let's just settle in to our humanity, right?
Mhm.
And then there are certain tools. So some of the things that I do is just helping people like recognize, hey, we've learned a defensive way of being in our nervous system, always looking for danger. The more dangerous our environments are, the more that is just all the way on, right? Like it's
Mhm.
just if it was a volume, it's turned, it's cranked, the stereo, the speakers are popping and ready to burst. We lead in just being with our body in curiosity. When I say being with our body, I'm like even, connecting to our space, our environment, like what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're sensing in touch, what we're smelling, like all of it, tasting, and recognizing that the more we can bring that curiosity aspect of our nervous system online, the more it gives our defensive orienting time to thaw out. So that helps us create a space. And then I'm sharing. So in everything, there's stories being shared from myself, from my colleague. This is their real life.
Mhm.
And some people are getting out where in prison, the cell phone, at least in the place that the men talking to me were, the cell phone is absolutely taboo. Like that can get your parole denied when you
Mhm.
go up before the board. And it doesn't matter if you're on the phone because your mom is dying. It doesn't matter.
Right.
In this transition, there's a need to connect with this world that has been moving at such a rapid pace, technology wise. So that in itself is a loss. My 4-year-old granddaughter knows how to use this, and it scares the gajeebies out of me. And then the more we witness just the losses that come up, the more comfortable people feel in sharing greater loss. So we all, myself included, revealed more and more of ourselves, our just ourselves in this process. And what's so amazing about this, we also do this exercise at the end where people write down what they witnessed in you in these days that we've been together. Some people are looking at this sheet of paper like, I need to frame this. These things have never been said about me before.
Mhm.
And yet it's the essence of who they are.
Mhm.
Like I just cannot even when you said that about the 12 apostles and the Virgin Mary, it really was like that. And maybe you just got it, Eric. When I would leave, I would laugh and cry. And they were both with this overwhelming joy that how in the world do I get to be the person doing life with these people who are
Right.
teaching me so much?
I was taken with that description that you gave of the gentleman who you asked him how he became so wise or something along those lines. And he said it was the solitude. So something that was meant as his punishment
Yeah.
was transformed. I don't think it works that way for a lot of people. They're broken.
No.
And so he was fortunate to be able to deal with the aloneness, being cut
Yeah.
off.
Well, and I think the men that have served that caliber of time who
Mhm.
are not broken, they're the ones that are wanting a program like this. So there are things that I do get to do, like, in this process, like show you how to send a text message or connect a document or discern what they're asking for between a PDF and a Word document or, these things that we take for granted. And then there's so much more that we do in terms of helping someone regulate their own internal responses when things get hard. and to plan in advance, knowing things will get hard, knowing somebody's going to give me some kind of look, at work, or a boss is going to talk in a way that feels, brings some things up, or the family members or people that don't believe in me, whatever. It's all going to come up. So we create plans for that kind of thing as well. One person, and this was a person from another group, but he called his cell his laboratory. He needed to go back in the lab. That's the other thing. This system does seem designed to break. That's another thing that I see is the courage, the fact that this seed of humanity, like there have been, they shared things that were done to their physical bodies. I found myself really thinking about Viktor Frankl, and that there are these humans that are in the worst of circumstances.
Viktor Frankl is the Holocaust survivor.
Yes.
Who wrote about his
Yes.
experiences, right?
And he also is the one who wrote Man's Search for Meaning and Logos Therapy, and
Right.
like so much, right? And his basic premise, and you would likely know better, that I've learned that if I'm going to say something, you've probably read way more books about what I'm about to say, but he had a premise that if a man has meaning, we can withstand, man, woman, I'm using that in the generic sense, that we can withstand more suffering than we could ever imagine if we can connect to a meaning, a reason to endure it. One of the things that just recognizing, especially in a society where we are so sadness and grief averse, almost like where it is villainized, right? So that we apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm crying. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry that. As if making anyone uncomfortable is this grave offense.
Well, but we don't mean it when we
We don't mean
apologize.
it, right?
Right.
Yes. But the willingness in a society like that to actually be with our own losses is so incredibly brave. And it's not just words. Here's what I'm recognizing the deeper I go in this lifestyle is that the more I attune to you, the more I attune to me. And it works in converse. The more I attune to me, the more I'm able to attune to you. And the ripple effect so that it really is this idea of healing me is healing you, is healing our world. It's being together. It's really, I mean, this sounds so funny, and yet I believe it. This idea of all we need is love. There's so much, and maybe that is simplistic, and but love acts. Love moves. Love comes. Love is so freaking brave. And Eric, the older I get and the more I grow in my own experience of living, the more I say in a very true way that you are me and I am you. And how I treat myself, I treat you, and how I treat you, I treat myself. And this is how we do our world. So I love grief, not because I'm a sadist, a masochist, anything like that. I love that grief breaks open the seed of my humanity and invites me to flourish. Every seed to become its full expression must break open, must die, must root, must, right? So I think the men and women and children that are willing to engage our sadness are like the bravest, the best of humans.
Right. And it's a bravery because, I was talking about the corruption that's in the world and the violence, the way that people treat each other as reflected in the headlines. And I think one of the reasons that we can relate to that is because we may experience some of that self in our fear of other people, in our fear of opening up ourselves and being vulnerable. And there's a way in which fear is in opposition to having an authentic grieving process, or in using our grief the same way that gentleman that you met used his cell as a means of transformation.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. I think we fear grief in the same way we might fear a prison cell. we fear being vulnerable to our grief and to each other and to seeing ourselves and other people as they really are, which, I mean, in my worldview, everyone is a radiant God in drag. But
I share your view.
right.
I share your view. And
we went to we use heuristics, which are shortcuts in logic or just in thinking, in order to label people. This person is okay. This person is not okay because they're crazy, because they behave a certain way, or they committed a crime. So that means they're a criminal by nature. There's just no redemption in that outlook. And our prison system itself isn't set up to redeem people or to rehabilitate people. It's set up for profit, to make money and use people as commodities to that end.
That is the thing that, and I shared this on another one of our episodes, my Velveteen Rabbit story, that grief is where I felt my humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what you just shared. Once I recognized that my goal is simply to be a human, it gave me eyes to see how much of our society is conditioning us away from our humanity. And I'm not saying anything negative about people who work in these systems, or like, we all are part of this. And what I'm saying is all the way from, being told in grade school when to go potty and when to, like, it's all for efficiency. We're working in big numbers. But in that model, we move away from human to work within a system. I guess that's why I love grief, is it invites humanity back. It calls our humanity back to us.
It's efficiency given limited resources. I mean, we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on war, on the military industrial complex. We don't spend anywhere near that amount in addressing the needs that people have.
We are trying to solve problems with punishment and violence. Right? And the war complex is the greatest expression of that. I'm using a line from The Crowded Room. It will not serve.
You've been listening to Grief Heals with your host, Lisa Michelle Zega. The podcast is produced by me, Eric Simpson, in association with Jump Up and Down Productions. We would love it if you would join us. Expand the conversation about grief. If you want to reach Lisa, she can be reached at her website, legitU.com. That's LEGITYOU.com. Her email is lisamichelle@legitU.com. You can reach me at litryfella@gmail.com. That's LITRYFELLA. Please tell a friend about us. Hit the like button. Share the podcast on social media. Until next time, Lisa and I are grateful to you. Thank you for your attention. This has been a Jump Up and Down production.